Good morning, everybody. I am Jarvis Smith. This is the PEA Masterclass. We're going to be having a day of speakers that will be sharing their wisdom and creativity and disruptiveness in the world of sustainability. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a post-broadcast event, so this will all go out over the internet. But thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to welcome Nick Ash to the stage. Nick is from Sustain Wiltshire that became Sustain Britain, and he's going to tell you all about his amazing movement. So Nick, thank you very much.
Do I get a zapper?
Have you got the clicker and stuff?
No. That's better. Ah, there it is. Yeah, I feel a bit obvious stood up here now. I was going to sit on it, Jarvis.
You want to sit on it?
I might as well. It's quite cosy, isn't it?
Do you need another one to put your stuff on?
No, that's all right. Right. So, as Jarvis knows, I hate speaking in public. So this is quite nice. There's not a lot of people here. So if we look at the title of it, that was a deliberately provocative title that sort of shows, well, people that know and work with me, I'm quite an angry, pissed off person most of the time. So that's the title, really, portraying my frustration with the general situation. Sit on the step now. I can't, I'm not allowed to sit there.
We'll do another take, okay?
You best come up, Will, and sort it out.
Can we start again, Nick, just so we'll make sure we get it all on?
Right. So, yeah, I chose this title to show sort of a bit of my personality, really, that I am quite an angry, pissed off person most of the time, and frustrated, generally. As some of the audience will tell you, I can get frustrated at very little things and very big things. I quite enjoy being frustrated, to be honest. I'm getting quite frustrated with a clicker now. Oh, pressing the wrong button, that's it. Right, so my name's Nick Ash. I'm the project director of a landfill company and of Sustain Operations CIC. I'm probably the most unlikely environmentalist that will be talking today. I mean, we're so unlikely that me and my colleagues turned up early and they tried to give us a site induction to come and help set up. So they didn't really recognise that we were environmental interested people. I spent most of my career building roads and railways and bridges. I'm almost embarrassed to say, in my earlier career, used to be a lovely moment when you used to get the bulldozers off the low loader and roll them through the first hedge. I used to get quite excited about that because it was progress. But now we've got a different opinion. So this is where I have a little bit of a rant. I think the time for raising environmental awareness is over, because I think it's been done. Everybody's aware of the problems. What we need to move on to now is actually sorting them out, rather than just pointing out that there's a problem. I would go as far as saying that the culture of review and consultation and awareness is actually delaying progress now, because everybody wants to be consulted on everything, and everyone has an opinion, and nothing gets done at all. I think our whole culture in the media and in the public of where they love to point out people's mistakes, like people are meant to be infallible that are doing stuff. No one's infallible. Everybody's going to make mistakes. And you don't really need to point. You can point out the mistakes and the people can learn from them, but the whole blame culture, I think it's, especially in central and local government, is just crippling everything. They are too scared to make a decision in case they get criticised for the decision. And that is our fault, because we are doing the criticising of the people that are making decisions. I worked for the civil service for many years, and there used to be a slogan in the civil service: the only way to progress in the civil service is never to make a decision, and then you cannot be held accountable or blamed for anything. And things just get knocked down the road to a massive degree. So, the status quo. Everybody admits that we're in a climate emergency, but it's quite the calmest emergency that I've ever seen. There's nobody rushing around trying to sort it out, and everyone's going, oh, well, the status quo. The status quo it's just inertia. I mean, going back to who we're trying to influence, are we trying to influence government, central government and local government? Do we honestly think that they have the ability to do anything? Because they don't. Right. Society is not sustainable. Our current society is very nice, actually. It's very, very comfortable, but it is not sustainable. Housing and food costs for the average working person mean that they don't have the headspace or the ability to adopt a sustainable lifestyle. We are not going to change the world by expecting people to suddenly wake up and adopt sustainable lifestyles. A sustainable lifestyle in this country is to preserve the bourgeoisie, upper middle class, to be honest. The people that work for our company, by the time they've paid their £1,000 a month rent for their 2-bedroom house, paid for the food for their family after working 60 hours a week, haven't got the headspace to think about wider and bigger questions. They are too concerned about thinking about how you're going to pay the electricity bill and the rent. I think I've said this with Jarvis before, I think to put it into some sort of context, the planet is under strain. I don't think the planet minds at all. I think the planet will be fine. It'll adapt. What we're talking about in terms of climate emergencies and what's going on is humans will feel the effect, and what is really in danger is our comfortable lifestyles. So I think to sustain what we're I had a meeting with some soil people the other week, and we came up with a word. What we're trying to do is support people's unsustainable lifestyles in a sustainable way. Oh yeah, a broken Britain. You hear about that all the time. I've got a new sort of phrase now. I think our governments at national and local level are just crippled by unconscious incompetence. They don't set out to be incompetent. They don't even know they're being incompetent, and they're blissfully unaware of the problems that they're causing. We've got incredibly poor productivity, a whole generation of underemployment. People are naturally looking for someone to blame. The people to blame are ourselves. We've got to take responsibility. We've got to use the underemployed and employ them to make change and make things better. We've got to do stuff. Our approach at Sustain is basically a bottom-up approach. We think there's no point in lobbying government, because even if you successfully lobbied them and they were really enthusiastic, they're not going to be able to do the change we need. A lot of politicians are only good at criticising other politicians. You can't really deliver meaningful change where the leadership changes every 5 years and is dedicated to being different than the previous leadership. There is just no strategic and tactical implementation capable in government in our current political system. So we're not preaching revolution, we're just preaching, well, we just leave them up there and sort it out at a local and a community level, and then they can all sit in Westminster and shout and jeer at each other and drink cheap beer and be happy, and save them being on the streets. So we believe in, instead of a top-down approach, a people and communities bottom-up approach, that if communities and local business start taking responsibility for delivering change on a small scale, that can grow and grow and change the entire country. So we have this theory, which is a thought experiment that we use to think of solutions. I mean, necessity is the mother of all invention. The sustained circle theory drives you. Basically, you draw a circle around a community and you try, within that circle, to deliver everything that's required to sustain the people within that community, within that circle. It is not possible across all things, but it's a thought experiment to drive the innovation of how could you do it if you had to. Like, imagine you're cut off from the rest of the world. How would you maintain the people's current lifestyles without them taking a big hit? And it's sort of a challenge to local business and to solutions. You've got to find a way of doing it in this imaginary world. So we're from Wiltshire, and we're outside Royal Wootton Bassett. So when we did our thought experiment, we thought, well, what does Royal Wootton Bassett need to sustain itself? Food, that'd be good. Food's important. Employment for the people, and housing. So those are the sections that we decided to concentrate on first and see if we could find advantages, find innovative ways to lever what we do have to make it. I mean, I'd underline all this. Whatever we do, it's got to be cheaper than it's done already. It's got to be better, which is the big challenge. So we've now got a short film. We made this film.
Can it be right that so much of the average household disposable income is now being spent on food? According to the Office for National Statistics, price rose for food by an eye-watering 19.2% in March 2023. That's the highest rate seen in 45 years. No wonder 95% of the UK sees higher food prices as a major contributory factor to the cost of living crisis. And what about the rising price of energy? It's a problem that needs fixing. There has to be a better way. We certainly think so. That's why we are launching Sustain, a new way of producing affordable fruit and vegetables year-round for the communities of Royal Wootton Bassett, Malmesbury, Purton and Brinkworth. It's a new solution that breaks the reliance on overseas imports, meaning that you can look forward to healthy local produce that's cheaper and more sustainably sourced than the supermarkets. And it's a solution that has the potential to provide cheap energy too. But how is this possible? Well, it involves a radical rethink of how we use our landfill sites for good. Let's explain. Every year we process thousands of tons of waste at the Crapper & Sons landfill site. Recyclables are removed for reuse and recycling, leaving behind only unrecyclable waste. This needs to be disposed of safely. Instead of incineration, which can be harmful to the environment, waste is stored in landfill. Safely sealed, the contents break slowly down over time, producing methane. Currently, this is tapped and burnt off, but it could be used to generate energy. That got us thinking. What if we could use that energy to heat and power greenhouses so that low-cost fruit and vegetables could be provided to the local community year-round? That thought stuck, so we decided to make it our mission to make that possible. As a result, we embarked on research that would see us achieve a world first, a new form of flexible, positively pressurized greenhouse that can be safely located on capped landfill. Our solution, the Sustain Super Midden, successfully and securely harvests heat, methane and CO2. The result is sustainable food and the most climate-friendly method of waste disposal. By installing a methane gas-to-energy plant on site, we can generate all the energy needed to power and heat up to 56,000 metres squared of positively pressured greenhouses. That's enough greenhouse space to supply 80% of the communities of Royal Wootton Bassett, Malmesbury, Purton and Brinkworth with fresh, just-in-time fruit and vegetables, including everything from lettuce to avocados. The beauty of the solution is that all CO2 produced on site can be used to enhance the growing and ripening process in the greenhouses. This can be sped up or slowed down to meet demand, helping to avoid waste. Through the miracle of photosynthesis, plants convert all the CO2 into oxygen, preventing release of this harmful greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, making the facility climate-friendly. The positively pressurized greenhouses flex with the landfill as it settles. And, thanks to the integrated airlock doors and a constant flow of filtered CO2 and air, unwanted insects, contaminants, disease and pollen are kept out. This helps to ensure biosecurity without the need for pesticides, allowing for an organic approach to the production of fruit and vegetables. That's why we're so excited about what we see as the future for landfill sites around the world, repurposing and reusing them for good, turning them into climate-friendly, low-cost energy, fruit and vegetables super production centres. These centres will deliver daily orders to local customers, collecting food waste to be processed through an anaerobic digestion plant, generating more energy and fertiliser. Spare electricity from the methane to energy and energy from waste plants will be used to support green industrial development and recycling, providing high-quality local employment. It's a solution that we're really excited about, and we hope you are too. It's all part of our Sustain plan to help local households keep costs down through a radical rethink of how we use landfill sites for good. It's also the first step towards our wider vision for Sustain, which will provide affordable, sustainable, low-density housing, employment and power, keeping more money in the local economy, reducing pressure on the Earth's natural resources and reversing globalization, all delivered by linked community interest companies. Turning vision into reality requires more than just innovation. It requires trust and support. That's why we've carried out extensive consultation with the community, local councils and stakeholders. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. Not a single adverse comment has been received. Parish councils have given their backing, local MPs have voiced their support. And the Environment Agency has provided strong and constructive guidance, helping to shape the project for success. The strength of community and institutional support underlines what we already know. Sustain is not just a good idea, it's the right idea. And yet, despite this strong support, our journey has not been met without challenges. Wiltshire planners have become a serious obstacle. After a 10-month wait and a £90,000 planning fee, we expected progress. Instead, at 16:10 on the very day the statutory period expired, we received a letter with 31 questions. Questions that revealed that the author hadn't properly read our submission, along with a demand for a 6-month delay. Worse still, there was a failure to consult National Highways, a fundamental oversight that has only compounded the delay. This is negligence. This is incompetence. And it cannot be allowed to block a project with the power to lower costs, create jobs, and deliver affordable food and energy for our communities. We cannot and must not let bureaucracy kill the planet. With your help and support, we can make this possible, creating a blueprint that can be replicated UK-wide, addressing the cost of living crisis, creating jobs, and providing affordable food and energy to local communities. Sustain. Nothing wasted, everything gained.
Right, I'll now talk a bit about the super-midden concept, which is effectively everlasting landfill cells, which you put waste in. When you normally run a landfill, you try and discourage gassing. What we're trying to do is encourage gassing. Gas off as soon as possible. We obviously harvest the methane, then remove the waste, which now has less biological content, dry it, recycle it, and refill the facility. So this is sort of, that approach, we calculate, saves 88,000 tonnes of CO2. But more importantly, there is valuable resources in rubbish. If we incinerate them, they all go up the chimney as CO2. If we recycle what we can, we store safely what we can't recycle, those resources, mainly as of now, dirty plastic, is a massive potential future resource for polymers and future plastic that will not have to be made from fossil fuels. It's not economic at the moment to recycle all plastics. It's mainly not economic because of the oil price. When the oil price goes down, all plastic recyclers go bust, because it doesn't matter what Coca-Cola or anyone say, they will buy the cheapest polymers for their bottles that they can get on the world market. So part of the thought experiment from our point of view is, obviously we had an existing landfill. We're quite good at processing waste. We had some methane already, so we've got a gas engine, so we're now totally self-sufficient on power, and we export it. And then, what are we going to do on top of these cells that might be there for 3 to 5 years? Well, we'll put a greenhouse on there, but you can't have a greenhouse made of glass because it will break, because the land moves all the time, and there's the potential of leaks of gas into a structure. So we had a positively pressured structure designed, which is fully flexible. No, they've been around for years, not on temporary foundations though, which is something we'll come to in a minute. It's the advantage, and this is going back to the theory of the circles, you've got to find the existing market's weak spot. So waste prices in this country are effectively controlled by the government. They set the landfill tax rate. That sets the gate fee for all incinerators and all waste treatment. However, thanks to our friends at the Environment Agency, if we can get these SWATACs, we call them, solid waste anaerobic treatment cells, to work, because the waste is in the ground for less than 5 years, there is no landfill tax liability, which unlocks a massive amount of potential revenue stroke capital investment, because we won't be paying the government £126 a tonne. We can still charge £126 a tonne, but we can keep the money, and we can use that money to invest in the project. So going back to the thought experiment, you have to look at things and work out a way that you could do what you want to do and get the money to do what you want to do. This obviously, and some of my project team are here today, this does involve building a series of structures that nobody else has ever built before, which proves to be very challenging. Equally, on the horticulture side, we went to all the big horticulture companies. They said, no, you've got a monocrop. So what we're going to try and do is grow food so against a demand model that is ready when people want to eat it. We looked at the market, and the opportunity on the food side is, although our food will be more expensive to grow than the big monocroppers, the supermarket, over half of their costs is in logistics and warehousing. We don't have logistics or warehousing because it goes straight from the plant into a box and delivered to the local market. So we believe that if we can achieve 80% domination of the local market, this is like playing globalization at its own game, we can deliver fresh food cheaper than the supermarkets to your door every day. Well, if you live in Walton Bassett, nowhere else, to your door every day. So we're getting there on the food front, but it's a massive technical challenge. I want to talk about overcoming some of the challenges. So that was our first growing dome after the first storm. We already knew it had a design error, and it collapsed. Raj isn't here. So, yes, it was a very sad day, because it was already being replaced anyway. So we all had a little cry. Then we moved our horticulturalist. If you see that structure, which is the vehicle entrance, we moved her experimental stuff into that structure, and she has successfully started to grow plants and give us the data we need for the big dome. Working with our Chinese partners who made it, the new dome is now on site and ready to be erected. So it's just about overcoming your problems, really. Right, what are we doing now? So, yes, there's Raj in the little porchway with a lot of hydroponic equipment. And that is some of the new design changes to the dome. I've got to say, I've never done anything with the Chinese before, but they're quite exhausting to work with. So they came and helped us erect the first dome. They realized it had a fault. They insisted that they would build another one free of charge because it was dishonorable for them to have supplied it. They left our site in Walton Bassett on the Wednesday, so they wouldn't have got home until Thursday. On Friday morning, my project manager and myself had a Teams call with them and went through the new designs, which must have been the middle of the night for them. On the Sunday, they sent me a video of a full-size test rig of the new design under load being tested in their factory. In this country, I couldn't have even ordered and got delivery of the steel work in that period. So green halo housing, and this is one of your favourites, Chris. So how do you overcome the housing problem in this country? The main house problem is related to planning and the lack of land. I don't think there's anything wrong with the planning regulations in this country. I think there's a lot wrong with how they're implemented, but the regulations themselves are fairly sensible. So how do you make housing more affordable? Well, what we came up with, Wootton Bassett has a great fear of being joined to Swindon. So we came up with this concept that what you do is you plant a forest all the way around the existing town for the green, that's why it's called the green halo. In that forest, you put low-density housing that you can't drive to. You have to go on autonomous electric vehicles or on a bike or walk there. So you put one central car park area, a bit like centre parks really, but on a thing. You put all the transport links back into the centre of the existing town to support the existing town. We wouldn't be looking to sell the houses. We believe in lifetime tenancies that you can pass on to your children with index-linked rents that include your power and all your utilities, because we can't be dealing with utility companies, so we would provide all that as well. As a result, you don't buy the land from the landowner. The land that you're using, they would never get permission for general housing on, so they're not staring at a windfall, a short-term windfall of a few million if they sell it to a housing developer. We would pay rent to the landowner and their next generations for 100 years, 200 years, which puts their income above their farming income as it is now, and it secures it, and they still own the land. They get to make the money out of the forestry, and they get to graze animals, etc., in the forest area. The great advantage we see of this is economically everyone can make money at it, and effectively you can deliver social housing a lot cheaper and have the rents capped that they only go up by inflation. So that's the green halo idea. Our next one was, we've got all this power. We could use that to support local industries. But nobody will let us build, because we have a 160-acre sort of farm, basically, as well as the landfill. Nobody's going to let you build an industrial estate on there, because it's not zoned for an industrial estate. So we set a challenge to our structural engineers. Design me a grazable structure. And when we mean grazable, we don't mean a little poncy green roof that you can feel nice about. We mean actually graze cows, drive tractors on the buildings. So effectively then, it's an interesting planning problem because it is still pasture land. It's just got an industrial estate underneath it now, which again is quite innovative construction-wise. What they've come up with is, I could talk about this for ages, but you'll probably be bored, is the shape of the building is designed to minimize the structural pressures on the building. So it's a very strange shape, and it moves in all three dimensions, but it does enable us to do a 40 meter by 40 meter by 10 meter high building with a meter of soil and everything on the top of it, with less than 200 mil of concrete, with not a lot of reinforcing in it. It has many challenges to building it. You can't draw it because it moves in all three dimensions. You have to use augmented reality to actually place the reinforcement and spray the concrete. So we hopefully will build the first one of those later this year. Oh yeah, this is my bit on ranting about the planners a bit more. I don't know the best I can call it is unconscious incompetence. So our planning had 0 objections from the public and strong support from all our parish councils, strong support from the MPs, strong support from the councillors. We think, this will be nice, this will be Good. So we put the planning permission in on the 16th of July. It took them 6 months to validate it. Validation is checking that you've filled in all the forms right and put the documents in. So we got over that. Validated on the 9th of February 2025. Going to be decided by the 11th of June. 11th of June, as we saw in the film, they write us a letter saying, oh yeah, well, there's this, this, and this. One of the classic questions was how many greenhouses? Yeah, it's only on all the drawings and mentioned 15 times in the documents, but obviously they couldn't do that. And they forgot to consult national highways. We are next to the M4. We are between the M4 and the railway. They didn't think of consulting national highways. He got slightly annoyed with the fact that they hadn't been consulted about this massive earthworks going next to their motorway. But, you know, that's fair enough. We got over that. We consulted national highways. The planners then said, oh, because you've agreed with national highways to move it back 10 metres, you'll have to go to full consultation again. Another 6 months. At which point the Environment Agency and the local flood board objected to it. They hadn't objected to it before. But in the interim time, new flood guidance and new flood map had come out from the EA that didn't exist when we designed the original scheme. So they said, well, we'll have to reject it on the basis of this because you haven't taken this into account. So we redid the scheme. It didn't have any effect. We said to Wiltshire, can't you just write to the Environment Agency and say this? No. We're going to have to do it formally. You'll have to redo all the flood plan. Yeah, all right. We resubmitted the flood plan. It sat on a Wiltshire Council planner's desk for 9 weeks before he sent it to the Environment Agency. In the meantime, we've got another development with a potential tenant of an food waste AD plant on site. It applied for planning permission 9 months after ours. We said that's not a problem. They were granted planning last week. We haven't. We asked the planner, why have you prioritised theirs over ours? Because ours was 9 months ahead of theirs. He said, well, they were both handed to me from someone else. He said, I had a look at both of them. He said the AD plant looked a bit easier, so I thought I'd do that one first. We're now faced with the prospect of having maybe our planning rejected for not taking into account the cumulative effect of the AD plant that has just been granted planning permission. It's just mind-blowing. But luckily, we have an answer to it. We have this concept called Sustainable Anarchy. So, Jarvis first read this to me. The definition of anarchy is the organisation of society on the basis of voluntary cooperation without political institutions and hierarchical government. And it sounds like really nice and radical and let's all do it. We've put some rules around it. You must comply with all regulations and all the laws and the intent of the laws within whatever you are doing. And you must apply for permission. And you must take on board any comments. But you do not wait to get permission, because there is no one can get you permission in the time scales that they're meant to, and we just need to get on and do it. So, despite not having planning permission, that is the bulk earthworks of the first SWATAC. That was taken a couple of weeks ago. That will be covered in concrete shortly, and we will have waste in it by the end of the year. And we might have planning permission by then. Right, so when we initially started, we were just sort of Sustain Wiltshire. We've then sort of widened it into, we've sort of got another movement, if you like, because people said, oh, well, you could come and do that for our community. We don't have a great desire to become the sort of Amazon of community-based solutions globally. But we are very keen that communities can learn from us and do their own solutions, because every solution will be different for every community, depending what those community assets are that they can lever and they can think. So we published a little manifesto. The green print, there's some copies at the back. Our solution is all about localization, not globalization. It is truly to forget the right-wing independent Britain. If Britain is not capable of looking after itself, it's not independent, doesn't matter what you do. So our solution is all about people starting to take responsibility for their own communities, then the circles can get bigger and bigger, and regionally and nationally, and start to provide everything ourselves, or as much as we possibly can. Little left-wing rant about capitalism. It's not really working, though. The investment community in this country only invests in things that it's seen before. They'll charge you a risk premium, but they don't intend on taking any risk. But in the end, the money they're investing, or not investing in our own country, is our money. It's not their money. I worked with a Belgian EFW firm for a lot, and their sales director summed the city of London up beautifully. He said they're pirates without ships. They just steal the money that flows through them, and then it flows back and they take a bit more, and it flows back and they take a bit more. But they don't even take the risk of going out and robbing it off ships anymore. So as I touched on, that's the green print that you're welcome to take a copy of. And this is potentially one of the things I'm most proud of. John's here. He started his own Sustain Cotswolds, concentrating initially on getting better waste collection for the towns that he operates in. Again, a community, we do everything as community interest companies, which I don't know why it's not a more common. You can do everything that a normal limited company does. You can borrow money, you can return money to shareholders, you just must give surplus profits back to the community. I think John's working hard and he's getting good traction. But again, he's offering a locally based solution against national and international waste companies, but at a better price and better service than they can offer. And I'm no doubt that he'll end up dominating his region of waste collection. Right, well, that's it from me. Any questions? Somebody ask a question. Go on.
Yeah, can you just go, you're talking about something I thought was quite interesting. Community, which is cuts from roads, single park, outside.
Yeah.
Electric transport centre. Can you just describe that again, how that works?
So the idea is trying to break, obviously we're operating now in a forest. You don't really want to build roads to everybody's house. You need to get services to them and like a footpath, really. And you don't want high density housing. One of the problems with housing development is the impact it has on the highways network. So effectively, you look round, you pick the best place to have the vehicle entrance to, and people have to park their cars there. They then make their way to their houses either on foot, bicycles, or little autonomous electric vehicles if they don't feel like walking. And, right. Yeah, that's how it works. Exactly like centre parks, yeah. But you get to live there all the time. And you don't get a free swimming pool in the middle. Mind you, from the energy plant, we might have some heat events, so you might have a nice big swimming pool in the middle. Any other questions? Go on, John.
explain a bit? Could you explain a bit more about the CO2 absorption in the greenhouses? So, and does anybody else do that?
Yeah, so if you go to Holland, where they're kings of greenhouses, I mean, that's ridiculous that our tomatoes come from Holland. It's worse weather than we have here. It's very common in industrialized greenhouses to enrich the air with CO2. They actually buy in compressed CO2 and put the CO2 percentage up in the greenhouse because it enhances plant growth because they take in the CO2 and turn it into oxygen. So you give them a bit of extra CO2, they grow better. Now in our solution, we've got two potential sources of CO2. We've got the exhaust gases that come from the gas engine. That is quite common in Holland to use your exhaust gases from a gas engine that would be running on natural gas to harvest the CO2. We have another option, and this feeds into the AD plant and our solution, that you can actually, from the raw gases that comes from anaerobic digestion, they mainly they make methane, CO2, and hydrogen sulfide. We take the hydrogen sulfide out in a biological treatment plant, but you can filter the CO2 from the methane and compress the CO2. You would then take that compressed CO2 and release it in little, well, if Raj was here, she'd say very carefully controlled amounts and control your growing environment. So again, it's something that commercial growers actually pay for, and we would be able to source ourselves. Then when you've got cleaned up methane, you effectively got bio-LNG, which the AD plant that's going at our place puts it into the gas grid, but you can actually run plant, equipment, and trucks on it. So our dream is that actually, because we've electrified all our processing, but our mobile plant and equipment isn't electrified, but we could convert it to LNG, meaning that we would be totally energy independent. And we're not doing that, again, it's cheaper than buying diesel. So our electricity is cheaper than buying it from the grid.
Okay, and just to clarify, the CO2 that goes into the greenhouse, how much of the CO2 gets absorbed into the plants?
I don't know. Quite a lot. You keep having to replenish the CO2.
It's significant.
If you've got a high production greenhouse, you get a problem with CO2 depletion in the greenhouse, affecting the growth. So it depends what you're growing and what stage they're at, but it constantly uses CO2.
Obviously coming into your waste site.
Yeah.
This can sound like a stupid question potentially. Where do you get it from? Because obviously the government obviously has the tipping and everything like that. How do you divert all that to you? I get the tariff charge you were talking about.
No, we've already got it.
Oh, you've already got it?
We've already got it. This is a part of looking at what you've got. I think we're the unique landfill in the country where our local community love our landfill. We go, Ryan who's here, puts great effort into our landfill doesn't smell anymore. It did like 6 years ago, we had a big problem. It doesn't smell, and we put a lot of money into the local community. So our site, as it stands at the moment, we take over 100,000 tonnes a year of commercial industrial waste, 50,000 tonnes a year of green waste, which we compost into compost, and probably 60,000 tonnes a year of wood waste, which we process and goes to power stations. So we're already an established waste company.
In terms of, obviously you talked about the supermarkets have got a price point and what you're going to produce is going to be slightly more, be more expensive.
No, it will be cheaper.
The interesting thing then is, at which point, and much as you don't like globalisation and everything like that, at which point do supermarkets and people like that start jumping on board with this kind of thing?
Well, That's one of the reasons, one of the sort of byproducts of being a CIC, and one of the reasons that we as a company were quite keen that the new stuff should be a CIC. So if we're really successful and somebody wants to buy us, you can't buy a CIC unless you are a CIC. So if Sainsbury's wanted to become a community interest company, then yeah, they could offer us a lot of money and buy us out completely, but they then would be a community interest company.
Right. But in terms of if they wanted to replicate this, I'm assuming they could. Is there a reason they wouldn't, I suppose, is what I'm asking?
Well, they haven't got a landfill and lots of cheap electricity. No, there isn't really. But I mean, you don't really have to be worried about competition. I used to work for an international cement company once, and they taught us, they said, markets are easy. All you've got to do is be the best quality producer at the lowest cost. And then the market always belongs to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if people come up and try and challenge, you will have to improve and lower the price point again.
Yeah. I mean, I like the concept of it. I live in the Isle of Man, which obviously is a community in itself.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem at the moment is the amount of food that we're producing on the island is dropping and dropping and dropping to minuscule levels.
Yeah.
SCOs have now come in and now established a foothold all over the island, so they now control 90% of the food coming into the island.
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of interested in the additional cost it gets to food to us. Why they're not pursuing more of this, why the Isle of Man government doesn't pursue more of this, it's an interest.
I don't think anyone's thought of it before. I mean, hello Raj. That's my horticulturalist who's had a hell of a journey. But it's about wanting to do it. Presumably, you've got some sort of waste disposal on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
So you've got an energy source there. I mean, our sort of, we quite regularly have meetings from, people that are interested in green farming, and some of them are a bit perturbed. What we're doing is not actually green farming, it's industrialized farming with just-in-time delivery techniques. It works for us, like it's effectively vertical farming, but what holds vertical farming back is the price of the building and the price of the land it's going on. Well, our buildings are quite cheap. A 20 by 40 by 9 metres tall dome costs £100,000. Our power is quite cheap because the alternative use for our surplus power is to export it to the grid. The grid, so we charge ourselves 23 pence a kilowatt for tenants. We charge Raj's dome 7 pence per kilowatt. If I export it to the grid, I get 5 pence. If I bought it back from the grid, they charge me 28. So it's taking, you've got to get away from, well, that's my electricity, I'm going to use it for this. Plus, the land we're putting it on is on top of waste. It's no good, it's not taking up useful land.
Last question, because I'm monopolising you a little bit. Obviously, you're quite unique in that you have a large landfill operation going on already. You've talked about, obviously, you'd like to see this sort of proliferating out of the UK. Are you unique, or are there lots of people like you that have these kind of operations that could build value add by doing this?
There are lots and lots of landfills in the country. I think if we prove the SWAT technique to work, then it will be widely adopted, but I think you've got to concentrate on, I think every community solution will be different depending what they've got. Wootton Bassett's quite lucky that it's got a whopping great landfill next to it, but every community has got something. You could, if you had lots of forestry, you could do it on biomass. I mean, obviously the Isle of Man's got a waste disposal route. It'll have food waste as well. So food waste AD plants are quite successful. You can make gas and power from those. It's about focusing what the community's got and the community taking ownership of the resources rather than letting national and international established people do what they've always done.
Thank you.
Go on, Chris.
In terms of your
Last one, Chris. Be quick.
Sustainable Anarchy,
Yeah.
one of your rules is you've got to comply with the rules.
Yeah.
But you're obviously advocating a bottom-up approach. At some point, there are people at the top making the rules. Are there any rules which you would currently say have to be changed in order to unlock potential?
No, I wouldn't say there are. When you look at most of the planning regulations and environmental...
Not necessarily just planning.
I mean, we say in here about a number of things we'd like to change in the central government approach, like zero VAT on 100% British content. I think central government could do a lot, but I think it would need to be very brave and very radical, and our current political system doesn't really encourage brave and radical. It's getting back to that bit. People love to criticise. People don't love to take responsibility and sort it out. And that's, if I was to say what would help the most, is an entire culture change of, we've got problems, what's the best solution? We might make horrific mistakes, never mind. Don't sack the person who's made the horrific mistake. Keep the person who's made the horrific mistake, because they're the best person to learn from it, because they committed the mistake in the first place. Well, in my personal career, that happened. I offered to resign when I was project manager because I'd lost £500,000, and my boss said, there's no way you're blinking resigning. You stay here and you sort this out and don't do it again.
Fair enough.
Brilliant, Nick. Thank you very, very much. Can we have a round of applause for Nick, please? Thank you.